Hey, welcome back to our home garden plan along series. This is episode 6 and my name's Alexa, and in today's video we're talking about starting or expanding your garden and what are the options for containers, raised beds, and in-ground gardens. It's still very early in the year, it's February, but the reason I want you to start thinking about building or how you're going to expand your existing garden is that you need time to gather your materials and your supplies. Garden season comes up pretty quickly in the springtime, where we can start putting plants outside in the ground even as early as April. So it's really not that long from now when you're going to want to start planting things outside. We'll start with the easiest thing is a container garden. If you don't have a lot of space, maybe you're just on a back patio or a porch or a balcony, you may think about just doing a small container garden. You can use pretty much any type of container you want to grow plants in, but you do have to think about what that plant is and how much root space it requires to produce the fruit that you're trying to grow. So if you want to grow a squash plant, for example, that plant is going to need a lot of root space and to be able to draw up all of the nutrition it needs to grow the squashes. So like a squash in a container would be pretty hard, but a tomato plant in a container is very doable. And you can use something, and for like a tomato plant, a 5-gallon bucket is going to be like the appropriate size for a container for a tomato. And you don't have to use pretty containers either. I mean, it is nice to buy nice, outdoor containers and pots for your garden, but it can get expensive. So always look online, like on Facebook Marketplace and other, freebie groups to try and find containers and big pots that you can use. You could use big plastic totes, big 5-gallon buckets that you would get like from Lowe's or Home Depot. I've done gardens in those. Anything that's just, really deep, you're going to want that for bigger plants like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and that kind of thing. If you're doing leafy greens, you can have a much smaller container. That's not quite as deep. That'll be fine because those things don't really require a deep root system. You can also think about vertical gardens. So I use green stock vertical tower gardens, and those are really good for planting a lot of variety of different things in a 1 square foot of space. It goes up instead of out. And that's also a really nice investment if you are limited on space, but you want to grow some food at home, some like lettuce, greens, and herbs, and even strawberries. And then there is the metal raised bed kits that you can purchase online or on TikTok. I do have one linked here. But these are really easy. Kits that you assemble, they're usually made out of aluminum. It's kind of like a puzzle. It gets shipped to your house and you can easily just put together this garden bed by screwing the little screws and the washers in, and it gives you a little diagram on how to do it. But it's very easy. Like even my children have helped me put those together. A few years ago, I bought some, and they did a really great job of helping me put them together. So it's something that you don't have to have a lot of experience in building or like construction sort of skills. So the metal raised bed kits are a really easy and kind of affordable way to go if you're just starting a garden and you need a lot of garden beds. I do have a video on my YouTube channel, Bloom and Wilt Gardens, of me putting together one of those metal raised beds. So if you want to check that out, link to my channels in my bio. And then you have the option of wooden raised beds. Now, a wooden raised bed is going to cost you more in lumber than those metal raised bed kits. Some people would prefer the look of a wooden raised bed. You could have them be 1 foot high, you could have them be 2 foot high. Really, it's up to you on how you want to build them. There will be some construction skills involved, building skills. You will have to use saws to cut your wood. You'll have to hammer in nails or use drills to, screw in the wood pieces together. You'll need to have brackets for bracing on the corners and the sides. There are a lot of tutorials out there on how to build raised beds. I do have one that I did about 5 years ago, where we built a raised bed, and we're going to be building a couple more wooden raised beds this year in my garden. So it's just, at this time, you want to start getting those materials. You need to figure out what kind of design you want, like how big do you want it to be, how many do you want. That's gonna equate to how much lumber and brackets and hardware that you have to purchase for this. So these things can take a little bit of time to source, to figure out sizing and material needs, and just the logistics of going to a hardware store and getting all of those supplies and bringing them home, especially if you don't have like a pickup truck to haul wood in. So those are just some things to start thinking about. So that way, like in March, you can actually start assembling those raised beds and getting them filled, because that's a whole other piece of, you need to be able to fill your raised beds. And looking up the method called hugelkultur is going to help save you a lot of money as you're filling your raised beds. And basically what that is you take logs, sticks, leaves, just any type of organic material like laying around in your yard, and you're gonna fill that at the bottom of your raised bed. So half of your raised bed is gonna be filled with just organic matter. And then on top of that is where you're going to put in your soil and your compost, and that's what you're going to be planting in. But that helps fill up a lot of space, so you're not filling that entire raised bed with soil, because that does get expensive. And then there's the easier approach of just doing an in-ground garden, so you don't have to have raised beds. An in-ground garden is just fine, especially if you have good drainage. Now there's some thoughts on tilling versus no tilling. So if you want to do a no-till method of gardening, I suggest getting your cardboard boxes right now and start laying them out on top of the grass or even the snow of where you want that garden space to be. And you're gonna just cover it with cardboard. You're gonna need some heavy rocks or bricks or something on top of that cardboard so it doesn't blow away. But as we get closer into spring and the snow melts and it warms up, that grass is gonna start to regrow. You wanna have that all covered before it starts growing, and that's gonna help kill the grass underneath, and it's gonna make it a lot easier for you to turn the soil over when it comes time for planting season. Or you can even just put soil and compost on top of the cardboard, and the cardboard will disintegrate. It'll kill the grass underneath. You'll have some planting matter on top, and that's a really easy way to do a no-till option. Now, if you want to till your garden, that's completely up to you. There are pros and cons for it. You will need to think about how you're going to till your garden. Do you have a tiller? Do you know someone with a tiller? You won't be able to till your garden space probably until May, because you need the ground to be fairly dry at that point. So that's something to think about. If you want to do early spring garden, tilling in May, you're kind of losing that window for planting your early spring garden. So maybe you'll just do something in a container at that point, if you want like leafy greens for the spring, for example. I have a great video where I show 10 different ways that you can plant your home garden. So a mixture of raised beds, in-ground, containers. I really suggest you checking that out, so it gives you some visual ideas of what you can do for your garden planting. And it doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be extravagant, but there are just a lot of different ways that you can grow food, and not one way is the correct way. I mean, it just depends on what works best for you. If you have a preferred way of planting your veggies, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.